Hello Game fan, I've expanded the definition of shoot 'em up in this video to include top-down shooters, where I'm excluding platformers and roguelites, so let's begin with Death Carnival, an intense title with extreme weapons, where the gigantic Gatling guns shown off in this trailer were the first thing to get my attention. This has a variety of characters and weapons, with equally unique attacks and backstories, where there is single player, co-op multiplayer and multiplayer PvP modes, where the gunplay and action in this looks fantastic, with a whole bunch of projectiles on screen, which is exactly how I like these games. A neat looking title that I've had my eye on for a little while is Roto Force, a twin stick title where you're stuck to the edge of the arena, where moving about rotates the level, which adds another dimension to this type of game. The boss fights in this look intense, with some particularly bold use of colours, looking like quite a challenge as well. While I'm not usually a space combat kind of person, D.E.E.P Battle for Jove got my attention due to its pedigree, coming to us from developer Thinking Stars, who you might know as the developer of the fantastic Anno Mutationum, which did make my Game of the Year list in 2022. This is an arcadey space action title where you're able to do barrel rolls as you maneuver your ship and destroy enemies as the leader of the rebellion, looking pretty slick as well. Our first classic shoot-em-up title is Cygni All Guns Blazing, a long in development title which I have covered before, where the news is that this title somehow got picked up by Konami in August last year, who will be publishing the game, which is certainly a curiosity given their recent track record in games. Earth's forces have been decimated by a surprise attack from a powerful biomechanical alien race, so, outnumbered and outgunned, you must attempt the impossible by battling through the enemy forces. I think that this looks pretty good in 3D, with fun and powerful looking weapons at your disposal and equally terrifying bosses, where the stinger right at the end of this trailer really showcases the epic scale of the game. Another title that has been chugging along which is ramping up its marketing efforts is Gripper, one where you control a futuristic bike thing, having to slickly maneuver your way around enemies while launching attacks of your own. It does kind of remind me of the boss rush title Fury, but with less of a bullet hell element, but the action looks pretty good and is slick and stylish. Speeding around your bike looks fun, where you have the ability to grip and rip parts of the mechanical bosses, eventually being able to use these for upgrades Monster Hunter style, certainly being a title to watch. I was caught by surprise when this title was announced, since Valfaris Mecha Therion is the follow-up to the awesome side-scrolling action platformer Valfaris, and while it sports a similar heavy metal feel as all of this developer's games do, it is instead a horizontal shoot-em-up of all things. I think that some of the weapons from Valfaris do make a reappearance, where this looks like an all-action title not to be missed, so even if you're not usually a shoot-em-up fan, this might still be of interest to you. One of the longest in development titles is Windrunners, a gorgeous pixel art aerial combat title that I've given a nod to many times in the past, where you play as rebels fighting against a tyrannical regime. It does feel very anime in terms of the overall vibe and theme, but the dogfighting aerial combat looks good in a love rousers kind of way. But I do wonder if you will be able to pull off tricks such as cutting your jets mid-air to plummet to the ground, but then to use it to maneuver yourself out of a tricky situation. The gigantic mechanical bosses are worth a look as well, where this developer has a curious history, having to take time off development of this game to work on a licensed game for Netflix which released in 2021, so hopefully development is full steam ahead on this title. First off, I love the look of this title, with some clean hand-drawn art and colours that simply look great, and then add to the fact that Mini Shoot Adventures is an action-adventure title with shoot 'em up and bullet hell elements, and you got my attention. I do think that there's plenty of room for games like this, where as compared to the traditional level-based structure, an interconnected world with perhaps Metroidvania style unlocks is better, or rather different at the very least. There's also a town building element where you're able to rescue your friends and restore the town, which is something that I always love in games, so it gets a high spot on this list. Honestly, there aren't too many classic shoot 'em ups in development and might be a relic of the past at this point, so in broadening the definition here, it allows me to put games like Remedium on, which would otherwise go in my action-adventure games video, which is not exactly true since I think of those more as 2D Zelda-like games. But back to the topic at hand, the grim, post-apocalyptic Renaissance setting of this game looks pretty cool. It takes place in a world more than 100 years after a plague ravaged the land and turned the majority into mutants, looking pretty good and is of interest. One of the most stylish and action-packed entries that I cannot wait for is basically Hotline Miami, but with anthropomorphic animals, set in a fictionalized bloody port city in Asia, where a protagonist must protect a young girl from the cruel plans of some old associates. It looks very stylish, although I don't know if it's taking the tribute too far with the way that the character holds a gun, being very similar to that in Hotline Miami, but hey, since the last entry in that series was in 2015, and the developers don't appear to have any plans of making more, I'm down for Kusan City of Wolves, and yes, it does look like that music video for Caravan Palace's Lone Digger, link below, and you can find out more about the indie classic in this video.